Now you can never have enough tents, can you? What's up YouTube? Welcome to my channel. I'm Mad76. Today I'm going to show you around the ALPKIT Soloist tent by ALPKIT. So in this video today I'm going to give you an overview of this ALPKIT tent. I'm going to tell you what I like about it and what I think ALPKIT could improve on it. So this is a free season, one person freestanding backpacking tent. It's got a retail price of £125 and it weighs just 1.2 kilograms. Now before I get started, I must say I'm not affiliated to ALPKIT in any way. I bought this tent out of my own pockets. Now my main aim today is to give you as much information as I can about my experience with this tent. So before I show you around this ALPKIT tent today, why not subscribe, hit that like button, or give me a comment below. Now with the housekeeping out of the way, let's get a look at this ALPKIT tent. Now the pack size, as you'll see, is tiny compared to the other tents on the market and will easily pack down into your backpack with no trouble. ALPKIT advertised this as a 42 by 14 centimeter pack size, but it can easily pack down much smaller if you take the poles and the pegs out. Inside the bag are the inner and the outer tents, as well as the poles and the lightweight pegs. This weighs just 1.2 kilograms, which is just over the weight of a bag of sugar. So inside, that's the poles, the pegs, the footprint, that's the inner tent, and then you've got the outer fly. So like I previously said, I always pack this into a separate dry bag. That way if the tent is actually wet, covered in condensation, dew, etc., then this will remain dry in my actual backpack. And as you can see, this fits easily in this X-Bed dry bag. Packs down much smaller than the actual ALPKIT bag itself, and much more lightweight and easier to pack in my bag. These poles, pegs and the footprint, they will always remain on the outside of my tent anyway. Doesn't matter if these get wet. So there are 10 ALPKIT Apex alloy pegs. Again, these are super lightweight, weighing only just 10 grams each. They each come with a short piece of cord, which is really helpful when removing the pegs from the ground. So these are the ALPKIT hubbed poles. They're a 7001 T6 alloy, which basically means they're super lightweight and strong. These weigh just 331 grams. In addition to these, I also purchased the optional footprint for a bit of added protection from the inner 20D ripstop ground mat. This footprint is also a 20D ripstop material, and it provides that ease of mind when camping on rougher and more rugged ground. And this only weighs a mere 128 grams, therefore not adding much weight to your pack. So an added feature if you do buy the footprint is that it allows you to ditch the 400 gram inner tent, giving you a lighter shelter option for all those minimalists out there, which is pretty rad. So now I've shown you the tent packed up and the unpacking, I'll get on to setting the tent up. So that was a quick time lapse of me setting up the tent. As you can see, it's a really quick and easy setup. You can do it inner first, or you could do it outer first if you prefer. Like I said before, if you ditch the inner, you can still set up with the footprint the outer frame, so you've got the tarp option, losing 400 grams pretty much. This is obviously a lightweight 3-season freestanding tent that weighs just 1.2 kilograms and packs down really small. You've got the freestanding structure, so once you've set it up you can then move it around, and obviously as you've seen, it can be pitched inner first, or if you want to you can pitch it outer first and then hook the inner in should you be in a downpour. I'll give you a quick tour around the tent now and then we'll have a look inside. So So the outer is a 20D coated ripstop polyester with a PU backer, and that's got a hydrostatic head of 3000 millimeters. So one feature is this vent. It's got a little plastic arm on it which you can velcro on, and that keeps the airflow through the front. It's got 2 guy-off points on either side, which just gives it a bit more structure. And at the back there's just one pull-out tab there, again allowing some airflow, and there's a vent on the inside. So the pole basically sits through the footprint and through the inner tent on these little clips, and then the outer has this little hook, and then that can go underneath, hooking on, and then you just simply cinch the strap down, giving it that tension. I'll show you the front entrance. There's a zip either side, and then there's a small vestibule space where you can keep your boots. It's not big enough for a backpack, as I found out, which is unfortunate. So you've got this outside door, and this rolls up to the top. I find it's easier to fold it to the inside, give it a little turn, and then just roll it all the way to the top, and that stops the little sausage roll ends poking out, and then it can hook just in the top as such to the hook and loop. That way it tucks in nice and neat, and it stops it from flopping around. So one thing that I do feel that ALPKIT are missing is that footprint coming out just a foot further, so you've got a bit of protection on the vestibule area when coming and going in and out of the tent. You've got a bit of protection below you. So the main entrance to the tent is just a mesh tent. There's no inner or outer, so it just keeps that ventilation going. So you could just pull around, and it's really easy just to pull it around, zip it up, and then it fits in a little pocket on the inside to stop it moving around. So let's have a look inside now. So with the tent set up, you can see it's a fair size one-person tent. I wouldn't say it's tiny, I wouldn't say it's a coffin-shaped tent in any way, shape or form. Now, this tent entrance, as you can see, shoulder width is okay, but there is a bit of a hunch to get in, certainly when you're sat down. So from a cooking aspect, if I was to be cooking here, it's quite tight, a little bit of shelter, but obviously you're still open to the elements. And now getting into the front of this tent, I'll show you, it's not easy from this angle, but if you turn around, flip around and go in nose first, then you've got plenty of room to get in. So this obviously is the easiest way of getting into the tent. I've got plenty of headroom in here. Shoulders just about skim the edges of the tent, but all in all there is a fair space to move around and turn around in here. So the top end of the tent here is a lot wider than that foot end down there, so I'd suggest you sleep with your head at this end rather than your head at that end. However, I've slept both ends of this depending on the floor, and I've got to say it was better sleeping up here because I experienced more condensation down that end. Even though there's a mesh at the end, there certainly was more condensation that end of the tent. Now I'm sat about halfway down the tent now. As you can see, I've got plenty of headroom. There's enough shoulder space here, touching the inner but not touching the outer, which is fine. And I can obviously lie back, or turn around and lie forward. So all in all, I would say it's a good living space in here. Certainly if the elements were very wet and cold outside, you might get a bit of cabin fever stuck in here all this time, but at least you can sit up, which is unlike some of the other tents I've had. Certainly my Banshee, I've not been able to sit up straight. Now the floor space in here does open itself up to a decent sized sleeping mat, so you can go for one of those wider and thicker sleeping mats, no dramas. However, I do find that when you've got your sleeping mat in here, depending how thick it is, obviously elevates you just that little bit higher, therefore making your head touch the top. Now in the top of this tent, which I hope you can see on this video, there's a little hook here for your light or your head torch. Now the top part of this tent, where the seam is, everything above there is a mesh, and likewise at the foot of the tent there's a bit of mesh as well, therefore giving you just a good bit of ventilation. coming on to some of the cons of the tent, as you'll see, the design of this tent is what they call a blade design. So from the back, it's quite wind resistant. However, should you be experiencing side winds, then it becomes quite unstable, I would say. Albeit you've got the guy outs, and those guy outs will keep it strong, but there is quite some movement in this blade design tent from the side. Another feature I'm not too sure about is the stitching on these guy out points. I've noticed certainly when the tent is a bit damp, I feel there's a lot of looseness there, and I feel adding the guy outs could potentially put extra strain on it once it dries out. So I'm a bit reluctant to really cinch it down. So another downside is there's some Velcro tabs just to keep it onto the poles. Now those Velcro tabs are part of the seam sealer within the stitching, and I've got to say that those have already started ripping after a couple of uses. So I'm a bit disappointed that that structure is a bit damaged and it could potentially leak in the future. And lastly, I think the biggest flaw with this tent is the entrance itself and how it leaves itself open to the elements as soon as you open it up. On more than one occasion, I've experienced my gear and the inner part of my tent getting wet due to this flaw, which is really frustrating. So okay, my final thoughts on this tent. Overall, I think it's a fantastic one-person budget, lightweight wild camping tent, and obviously if you're just getting into wild camping and backpacking and hiking, this is definitely a tent for you and one for you to consider. I've highlighted some of the flaws with regards to the vestibule, that little footprint it's missing in the vestibule area, and certainly that front entrance and the way it opens itself up to the elements. A few other little bits and pieces I think is worthy mentioning. So ventilation and stability of this tent are definitely things you're going to need to factor in. In terms of stability, I do feel that the blade design opens itself up to high winds and your tent could get a battering and could even break. Also, that front entrance I keep mentioning is very open and exposed to the elements. So all in all, the time I've had with this tent during the summer has been fantastic. Whilst I've not used it in extreme wet or extreme wind conditions, basically because of the weather we've had this summer, I can't really give you a fair review in respect of that. But all in all, fantastic tent, really good price. Definitely recommend to anybody just starting out for their first wild camping or backpacking or hiking trips. So that's a wrap for today. I've been Mad76. Thank you for sticking around, and as always, if you've liked what you've seen today, subscribe, like, or give me a comment, and we'll see you around soon. Stay rad!